Let's get down to business. So, it's the video you've all been waiting for. Not the Merlin video. Oh no, not today. Today we're going to be going to Resident Evil territory. And this weekend, or last weekend, depending on whenever I post this, I watched Resident Evil Death Island with my mom, someone who enjoys Resident Evil, who understands Resident Evil, and we both had the same thing to say about this movie. Oh my gosh, I will just start from the beginning. I'll start from the beginning. Since I've done this with all the CG movies, basically, I kind of slacked on Darnation because it's my least favorite. I just like that Ada was in it, and she actually had gumption, and she's actually a character and not just eye candy for Leon to oogle over while he does the dirty business. And it was also kind of funny. It was something to not take seriously. The only thing I took seriously was the fight between Ada and the president of Skoskovia or whatever, like whoever. That was a good fight. That was really good. But we're not talking about Darnation. If you want to know my opinion about any of the CG movies or any of the Alice movies, link will be in the description to all of those, including my Resident Evil playlist, which has everything I've talked about Resident Evil with. But today we will be discussing Resident Evil Death Island, the CG movie that just came out recently, that is supposed to be, that has been coined by everybody as the Avenger type movie for all of the Resident Evil heads, including, but I guess not limited to, considering that there are some people who are still alive that no one discussed, even though they weren't in other games, but we still know them to be true and alive. Chris Redfield, Claire Redfield, Jill Valentine, Rebecca Chambers, and Leon Scott Kennedy. They're all in this one. Barry was not. We didn't even get a pity Barry or anything. You know, I thought they were going to pull Barry out of the hat at the end. But no, he's not in this movie. And Sheva isn't in this movie because everybody knows every time I bring up Sheva, they're like, well, he's in Africa. Even though Leon Kennedy can go to Spain and he can go everywhere, he can go to the moon. He will go to the moon next and beat the moon virus. But Sheva has to stay in Africa. That's literally, I've been told that. I've been literally told that, like, honestly, that's okay. But like I said, we're going to start from the very beginning. I'm going to go through this whole movie and give my opinion based on what happened during the movie. And then at the end, I will talk about how I feel like this movie could have been better. Because I literally gave it the good old sportsman try. I really gave this movie a chance. I sat down, I watched it, I wasn't doing nothing else, and I legitimately just sat there and watched it. So here we go. The whole movie, Resident Evil Death Island, was a disappointment to me because I'll explain why it was a disappointment at the end. So Death Island begins with a mission with Unit 6, we know. They're umbrella people who don't know what they're in for. They're like, so what are we going to do today, Bob? Blah, 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 blah. Are you working hard or hardly working, eh, Mac? Like, they acting like this is just a day at the park when these operatives know that terrible things are happening. And maybe, like, in every Resident Evil, we see the grunt workers not knowing what to do. And it plays into the whole soldiers are pawns type theme that this whole movie takes on. And it could have been so much better. And I can't wait to discuss my interpretation of what I could perceive to be something that would be better than what we received in this rendition of this CG movie. But they're supposed to evac Umbrella operatives, people, and personnel while killing anyone who tries to escape Raccoon City that's not like Umbrella people, which dates this to be during the Raccoon City incident, which makes Claire, Leon, and Jill's attendance in this movie actually matter here and gives us a timeline in which this takes place. The soldiers are shocked as to what they're dealing with, which is a little strange because, like, at this point in the timeline, Zero has already happened. But I guess those people who went on Zero died, and I guess that's the reason why they're like, okay. And the only person who really survived the underground stuff, if we're not going to take Operation Raccoon City into consideration because it's not canon, perhaps they could have just been like, Hunk was like the only personnel that survived. But I'm looking too deep into this. I'm a real RE fan, so I know all about this stuff. And then when they start saying stuff and they start putting things and they start going back in time, I start looking mighty questionable. But okay, we can continue as if let's just continue, you know? The soldiers, like I said, are shocked as to what they're dealing with. The infected must be quarantined and wait for orders. They see they're gonna die. So the main villain of the movie is an Umbrella op. who's a straight arrow. It stands for justice or whatever. I can't take this dude seriously. I'm gonna let you know, this is the worst villain they've ever done. He's on par with the guy from Resident Evil 6, who is the worst villain that they've ever had. I have more respect for Jack Baker, that half-baked story that Resident Evil 7 and then Resident Evil subsequently 8 continued. That sorry sack of a sorry story, that garbage. That dude from Resident Evil 6, don't even remember his name, turned into a dinosaur, Mighty Morphin Power Ranger type situation. What on earth? This dude's terrible. This dude's terrible, and his mutation was disgusting and not in a good way. So, like I said, this dude's a straight arrow or whatever. He fights his soldier buddy because he wants to leave, and they have to shoot in the affected or else they have no evac. So his buddy is like, we gotta kill everybody. We gotta kill everybody. And then he's like, stop it. His name's Blake. We don't learn that till a little later, but this dude's name's Blake. And he starts crying on the floor. And then we get the opening credits, which has everybody's file. Jill, Chris, Claire. Funny how Rebecca's not there, even though she's been through stuff. She's been through like 3 things now. Canonically, she's been through 3 things. But if you want to know what that is, 0 is a prequel to 1. She was a part of 1. And she was a part of Vendetta. So, yeah, she should have a record as well. But she's not a part of that. Okay, that's fine. Maybe she is. Who knows? She's there on thing because the opening credits are the credits crediting the people who are in the movie. But in the end, she's not anybody that this guy cares about. That's why she's able to come and save the day or whatever. But by the way, this is a spoiler. Like it should say always read the description. Reading is key. Reading is essential. Reading is important. So the word pawns keeps being shown on the cover screen thing, and it shows our big Avenger-style heroes, Jill, Claire, Rebecca, Chris, and Leon. And Leon and Hunnigan are still the Kim Possible and Wade of the universe, and we don't even get to see Hunnigan. And she's like, I would say she's a woman of color. I wouldn't say she's necessarily black because I'm not necessarily sure what they're trying to do because they considered her Caucasian in Darnation, and they considered her Caucasian in 6. However, in 4, she had some skin tone about her. She could have been any person of color. I always assumed she was black, but they have been wishy-washy with who she is and how she is, and we don't even get to see her in this movie. We just hear her voice. She's literally like Barbara for Batman in the Arkham games. But they're still doing the Kim Possible Wade thing. Leon's still using motorcycles despite Claire actually being the motorhead, which, like, literally, I hate when this happens because no one says anything. There's no streets that are run amok. There's no buildings being burnt down digitally by these incels and quarter of a men and Doom Chicken. Nobody is questioning when a male character takes women's attributes, but everyone had everything to say when they make something, remake something, or do something, and they're like, wait a minute, that woman took that guy's stuff. Here's a big example that people talked about, like the nerds like to talk about, Harry Potter, where Hermione took some of Ron's stuff, and Ron was kind of like Doofenshmirtz, like he was like doofy and goofy, more goofy than he was in the actual books, even though Just Kidding Rowling wanted to make Hermione into this loser scum that no one cared about. That's why she was trying to free slaves, and she was like, haha, how dare you try to pretend to care about anybody other than like the status quo. Like legitimately, that woman made Hermione into a character that you're supposed to look down upon. And the actual movies make her someone that is not looked down upon. And it's for a different reason. Both are terrible. And maybe I'll make a video about my critique about Harry Potter in hindsight over the years, but that's not going to happen today. We're not going to go down that road. I'm just going to let you know that it's funny how Leon is always on a motorcycle all of a sudden when Claire was the motorhead. She's always been the motorhead. The only thing that Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City movie got right was the fact that Claire Redfield is the motorhead, the motorcycle head. I have yet to see her on a motorcycle since the remake of Resident Evil 2, and they haven't even done called Veronica, and there is no instance in which she would be on a motorcycle unless they're going to do the prologue where she is going to Paris and trying to look for Chris and whatnot, and then she gets captured, or she goes to Europe. She goes somewhere to Europe looking for Chris. But if that's what they're going to do, that'd be great. And also, it would also be great if they showed Claire side A, because they showed Leon side A in the prologue of Resident Evil 4 Remake. Speaking of Resident Evil 4 Remake, want to see me play it? I am playing it on Twitch, stream the Princess of Darkness _ between all those words. And I also have a playlist of my playthrough highlights on my YouTube channel. So navigate that. It'll be linked in the description. If not, it will be on my playlist list. It is very easy to navigate. But back to the story. Leon's on a motorcycle, even though Claire is the motorhead, and no one is complaining about how Leon is taking Claire's attributes, because you don't care. You only care when women do it because you're trying to find a Mary Sue in something that doesn't exist. So, the movie opens up with Leon, the loser Kennedy, on the road again doing another Kim Possible mission. I hate him so much. We see the girl from Vendetta, who we saw in the end, I think. So they finally know how to pick up plot points. That's one thing that I noticed. Like, in all these ones between Degeneration, Darnation, Death Island, goes back from Vendetta, which was the last CG movie they made. Like, all of them don't connect to each other, and they're just like kind of side stories. Revelations are side stories to the main lines. These CG movies are tertiary stories. Like, they're not even secondary. They're like tertiary or whatever, however you would say that. But it's pretty like non-consequential. Like, you don't even have to watch these movies. It's just for the fans. Literally, these are just for the fans so that we feel better about ourselves. And what I hate about this movie is that this is a shut up, you feminists, you shut up all these people who care about people's lives. Like, this movie game, because it looks very much like the games, and that's cool in a way. And then it's not, like I said, it's very passive aggressively telling us to shut up about all of our gripes, and our gripes like, where's Jill Valentine? Where's she been for the past like some odd years? Where's Rebecca Chambers? Because she's still alive. You let her live, so where is she? And there's going to be some people out there that was like, oh, you're upset when Jill's not there, and then you're upset when Jill's there. Oh my gosh, nothing will please you. Actually, a lot of things will please me. Not this movie. This movie's not going to please me. It had a terrible plot. Horrible villain. If you want to sideswipe and /magash and say that the villain is a great foil to Jill, you don't understand Resident Evil. You just don't. But I will explain to you why in this video. We also asked for Barry Burton, but again, I don't see him here anywhere, and I have yet to see him in a long time, except in Revelations 2, which was a bad game. If you want to know my opinion about Resident Evil Revelations 2 and 1, I have reviews on those. If you want me to play it for the channel, let me know. I tried to play it on my old thing. I literally might have to play it on my old Xbox, but just let me know. Just let me know what you would like. But there are a lot of people who are alive that we didn't get to see in here. But like I said, this is a shut up, you nerds. They literally have no respect for their fans. Like, Capcom has zero respect for their fans. But after we see Leon and Hannigan doing that, and he sees the girl that he saw in Vendetta and fought or whatever, for some reason she has a vendetta against Leon when Chris was there too, and Rebecca was a part of it as well. But she only has beef with Leon, and I don't remember Vendetta enough to know for a fact if this is valid or not, but I did do a review on it when it was fresh in my mind. So go to that video when you're done with this one if you'd like. And you know what? I just went back to all of my CG videos, CG movie videos, and I gave Degeneration a 6 out of 10. I gave Darnation a 4 out of 10. And I gave Vendetta a 7 out of 10 because Leon wasn't in it as much as I expected him to be. I gave Infinite Darkness a 0 out of 10 because it's just garbage. It's just literally fodder that you could never watch in your life and your life would still be good. But I would like to draw back my Vendetta. I don't really understand why I gave it a 7 out of 10. In all honesty, it's really a 3 out of 10. Like I said, people were healed by magic in the end. And as this seems to be a sequel to Vendetta, I personally feel like it's more appropriate for Vendetta to have, because it's just terrible. It's really terrible. So yeah, I'm sending that score back for that one. The next scene we see is Claire doing her humanitarian stuff. She's still doing her humanitarian work for TerraSave, which is something that was established in Resident Evil Revelations 2. And this is something, I'm going to go down a little rant rabbit hole for a second, because I saw someone on Twitter is like, unpopular opinion about Resident Evil. You should respect the character's wishes, and you shouldn't want Rebecca to be on the front lines because she doesn't want to do that. And you have to respect Claire Redfield's wishes because she doesn't want to be on the front lines with a gun either. So, you should just let the women go back to the kitchen and then just be happy that Jill does stuff, but you've got Chris and Leon and every other man can do whatever they want. That's literally all I heard. That's literally all I heard when I heard that. First of all, the thing wrong with that is men are writing these characters to want to stay in the kitchen. And I'm not going to say that being in the quote unquote kitchen, this metaphor for the humanitarian work that they want to do, that it has nothing to do with shooting up and banging up anybody on the front lines, is a problem. But when you know that it's coming from a bad place, when you know the context is they're doing this because they are women, it is not good. Let everyone fight. We've known these characters for a very long time. Rebecca has been in the series for a longer time than, guess what, Leon S. Kennedy. But Leon S. Kennedy gets to do whatever he wants to. And there is commentary about how he's a robot or just a worker bee for the bigger man up there, and then the commentary of how he's fine with that. But no one is going to be like, you know what, yeah, you're right, to the villain. But I'll discuss that when it gets to that point, okay? I'm just not here for anyone talking about respect the wishes of characters that were made by men. Like, that was their wishes. That's not Claire Redfield's wishes. Claire Redfield doesn't exist. But if we're going to characterize these people and personify them into human beings, then you have to understand my duress in how they're treating them and how long it takes for them to actually be the focal point of a movie, TV show, what they like. We are just coming off of Resident Evil Infinite Darkness, that 4-part movie on Netflix where Claire wasn't even allowed to use a gun for unknown reason. You've got women to this day still being arrested on this earth for doing the same thing men have done for years. Legitimately, that is literally what is happening here in real life. So you think it's impossible for these people who are higher up, who are making these shows and movies, to have like misogynistic tendencies and misogynistic points of views that will put these women into disparaging positions. I don't understand why we can't have this like legitimate conversation about this problem without people having an issue. If you want to know my opinion about how misogynistic is Capcom, I legitimately made a video about that. Link will be in the description, or you can go navigate my Resident Evil playlist. But I think that's all I have to say about that for now. We will get back to Resident Evil Death Island, but that is where I'm coming from. That is all I have to say. I'm not arguing with people about this. It's not changing. I have way more evidence to prove that it's the case than it's not. I'm not arguing about it. Let's go back to Claire. Claire has been reduced to a job that no one wants. She literally pulls up on the scene and she does her due diligence as the woman who quote unquote stays in the kitchen. This is a metaphor for a man, to a literal man. It's not even like could have brought a woman here, have it at least been leveled, the playing field be leveled, but no. It was a man pulling up and saying, well, at least someone's here to do this crappy, disgusting, good for nothing, no one wants to do job. Like, he literally says that to her. Watch the movie. He literally reduces what she's doing. They know what they're doing. Do not tell me I need to respect the wishes of the characters to want to do humanitarian work or not frontline work. When this is the dialogue we get a guy pulling up behind Claire saying, at least someone's here to take out the trash and make my sandwich. I don't understand. It'd be one thing if this scene wasn't here, but it's like literally the first scene we see of Claire. She's being degraded by a man for what her job is. Like, at least someone's here to do the crap no one wants to do. I hate whoever's in control of these narratives. I hate whoever made this dialogue, the writer of the plot. You make me sick. Thank you. Now, let's go to the next scene. We see Jill Valentine, the first time we see her in a CG movie ever. Mind you, she was in the first game. The first game is the reason why there is a fourth game with Leon S. Kennedy as the solo hero, while we get Ada Wong on the sidelines. This is the first time we've seen Jill Valentine in a very long time. However, for some reason, she looks exactly to the T like she looked in Resident Evil 3 Remake, because they are too lazy to just create a new look. They have assets that have been already used. And the reason why I call it lazy is because I actually saw a prototype or just art that they were going to use that looked way different. Her hair was longer. It looked like time has gone by. It would actually make sense if her hair was short, because she could have, because it was bleached because of the whatever. Maybe that's not something that's forever. Maybe it's like, okay, she'll grow it out and it's brown again. You know what I mean? And it's short because she cut off we could have seen a scene where she's sitting in front of the mirror, if you wanted to go back to Resident Evil 3 Remake, like she was in the beginning of the Resident Evil 3 Remake, in the mirror, cutting off the rest of the blonde hair that she had in Resident Evil 5, because this is after Resident Evil 5. This is after Resident Evil 6, but we're gonna learn that in a couple of seconds. It's a little annoying. Like I said, it's a little annoying that like we're seeing the Resident Evil 3 Remake as if Resident Evil 3 Remake is when the last time we've seen her, when the literal last time we've seen her is Resident Evil 5, which is what? 1, 2, 3. Okay, here we go with 3, 4, 5, which is after 3. See how math works? See how numbers work? Whoever made this, what is wrong with you? I don't know if they're just trying to make people, because a lot of people had an issue with what Jill Valentine looked like. And like I said, this is a literal knock in the teeth to everyone. Everyone's getting strays, whether it be the incels, which deserve the strays, or the actual real fans of Resident Evil. We're getting strays too. We all got kicked in the teeth with this movie. Everyone should feel attacked. Everyone should feel attacked with this movie, and they shouldn't be praising it at all. That's just my opinion about it. Maybe you loved it. Maybe it saved your marriage. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. This is my opinion about it. Everyone got kicked in the teeth. Everyone caught strays. And I'll explain to you why I think that is later. But I know for a fact they used her Resident Evil 3 Remake skin. I'm calling it a skin because we're basically in Fortnite right now. Because a lot of people were angry at what she looked like, calling her mannish or whatever, or saying that she's not feminine enough, even though she was punching people out and slapping people, and she's too vulgar. She curses too much, and she really didn't curse that much. She cursed she just cursed like an adult might, but she wasn't feminine enough for people. She didn't have a skirt that they could look up and see pixels like they used to. Like, it was literally terrible. And I'm fine with incels getting clapped back at, but like I said, everyone got clapped back at in this movie. Just because you guys are looking at the thing like they made you a 5-star dinner and then they crapped on it and then you still ate it. Because the 5-star dinner is having all of these characters here, and then the crap is everything else that came with it. Like I said, they used the assets from the last game we've seen her in, Resident Evil 3 Remake. Not their best work. And I personally don't care what she looks like. I think it's fine. I think what she looks like is 1000% fine. Her voice actually matches what she looks like. Their excuse is that Jill doesn't age. That's a crock of bull crap. Because even if she doesn't age, they can still make her hair different. Oh, her hair's not growing anymore. Oh, okay, that's really interesting. So what did she look like in the remake of Resident Evil 5? What Jill are we getting with Resident Evil 5? Because she would still have blonde hair. Oh, she dyed it. There's a lot of excuses you're giving me. A lot of excuses. Leon's voice actually matches what he looks like. Claire and Chris, on the other hand, do not sound like what they look like at all under any circumstance. Where's my Allison Court? Where's my Roger Craig Smith? Please have them employed again for these characters, because it's just not cutting the beans. It's just not cutting the beans, y'all. It's just not. Chris sounds tragic and Claire sounds less than great. Like, this is supposed to be taking place after Resident Evil 5, supposedly, and also Resident Evil 6. But you can't tell by anyone's appearance. Yes, Chris looks aged, But he's not fitting in the timeline where it's after Wesker thing and what Wesker did to Jill. Like I said, her hair was blonde, and it would make sense if her hair was short, but it does not make any sense at all that she looks precisely, if not exactly the same as she did in Resident Evil 3 Remake. And they're like, oh, well, she didn't age and all that, but she still had blonde hair. And again, like, even if you just had one scene where it showed her cutting it off, it would actually make sense. And they wouldn't have to keep talking about, remember when this happened in Resident Evil 5? Remember when this happened in Resident Evil 6? Remember when this happened? Like, they literally sit, time stops, and they have dialogue about what happened in the game instead of just telling us with showing us. They're telling us and they're not showing us. And they don't have to do a back in time skit. Like, this isn't Family Guy. We don't need no look away gag or whatever. We need decent dialogue and decent writing and overall decent scenes, which I don't think there are any here. There's like maybe one or two. And like maybe I'll tell you when it happens. But no, not good to me, not good to me. Supposedly, how she acts is due to her having trauma. And I totally believe that to be true. If they actually cared about Jill Valentine, they were just tired of hearing, where's Jill? Where's Jill? And threw her into this movie haphazardly. And also the other RA girls are alive minus, Sheva. Like I said, obviously, she can't leave Africa. She's tethered to Africa, according to people when I ask about where's Sheva. Like, what's your excuse about Carlos? What's your excuse about Carlos? Exactly. You just like to say horrible things. It's funny how Leon can go to other places, but not Sheva. Chris can go to other places too. Didn't they go to China? Okay, my bad. I'm sorry. I'm just logical. Can't even be excited that the girlies are here because they're an afterthought. In all honesty, the only person who actually makes sense to be here, like I'm being thoroughly honest here, as a Claire stan, she does not need to be here. They try so hard to make her fit into this story and it just doesn't work. Rebecca is the only person that has any moment to shine in who she is and actually bring something to the table. That is it. Jill can be here and it would make sense because it's kind of her story. She's got the most screen time. But like I said, Claire, unfortunately, as a Claire stan, I have to be honest, unlike the Leon stans who will go to their grave and say that everything that he does is spectacular, even though if Leon does something, Claire should be able to do something because they were released at the same time, Resident Evil 2. But funny enough, y'all have all the excuses in the world for why Claire should be somewhere else and not anywhere, while Leon gets to be wherever he wants to and kiss every girl in every single CG movie he's in. He kissed like girls he's asking a date or whatever her name is. Anyway, then we see Chris. What on earth is this voice, bro? Come on now. Whoever's Chris, I'm so sorry. It's terrible. Then we see Jill give Chris the cold shoulder, and I wish we got more romance between them. Like, anytime we don't want romance in something, they decide it's completely necessary, like The Legend of Korra. But when there needs to be a relationship here because there has been a relationship implied the entire time, nothing. They're just, that's like a brother and sister. No, you know who's like brother and sister? Claire Redfield and Chris Redfield, because they're brother and sister. He doesn't need two sisters. He's got a girlfriend and he can have a boyfriend if he wants to. But Jill Valentine is the girlfriend. Or wife. It would be amazing if they got married. It would be amazing, but like there's no like hate it so much. Like if I could have any romance, it would be romance between Jill Valentine and Chris Redfield. Can't even have nice things. Can't. It's impossible. They're pushing Leon and Claire and I hate it, but do nothing of substance for Chris Jill. Then the next scene we have Rebecca sitting in her science lab coats and talking about how there's an improved T-virus infecting people, but it's not through airborne or saliva or anything or whatever. Now Rebecca is lecturing Chris only for him to start explaining what timeline we're in or what part of the timeline we're in, confirming that this is, in fact, after Resident Evil 5, because she's like, you're just not da-da-da-da-da-da, and it's just like, I don't mind this dialogue between them. It just seems very forced. It just seems like everything is stagnant around them And yes, you have to get the information out there, but I feel like there's a better way to do so. And I'll talk about that in the end. But it's just really interesting how this girl who's like way younger than him is going to be lecturing him about what to do about the person that he's been with a lot longer. Because if I'm not mistaken, Rebecca's from Bravo team and they're from Alpha team. And I'm not saying that she's bad or anything. I'm just like, like Alpha team and Bravo team are like two different teams. And I feel like this whole thing between Rebecca and Chris, where like Chris is like, oh, he doesn't understand, but he understands that people around him have been getting killed. You'd think that he would want to be closer to Jill. And yeah, he's talking about, oh, you're off this case because she's like being very reckless because she's trying to like, I guess, make up for everything that's happened or whatever. And there's a great way to go about that. They just didn't know how to do it. They couldn't cut the mustard. They couldn't cut the mustard or the beans this time. Jill is practicing in the firing range or whatever. And like I said, Chris says Jill needs some time off. And I really did think that Death Island was going to be about them on vacation. And I'll talk about it later, but that would have been really cool. Like, gross, dude. And like I said, I hate this voice for Chris. Chris's voice is so terrible. But y'all love to harass people and talk about, oh, it's not about race. It's not that she's Asian. It's just that she's bad. No one's talking about how bad Chris's voice was in this movie. No one's harassing him off anything. In fact, I bet he's got 9 more things lined up because, oh, y'all think he did so great. I bet, like, I don't know. Y'all just pick and choose who you give more leniency to men, and then you are 10,000 times harder on women. And it's been proven. It's been proven. Exhibit A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Like, Krauser in Resident Evil 4 remake, sick. Disgusting voice. No one said anything about that. Sadler's voice, terrible. No one said anything about that either. And then this Chris is awful. Chris has been awful since Roger Craig Smith, was no longer called back or whatever happened with that. If you know the reason why he's no longer Chris, please let me know because I know exactly why the Wesker got replaced. I've seen it all about that situation, but nothing about Roger Craig Smith or Allison Court. And I also heard word on the street is because they were like, oh, Allison Court getting too old, And again, like discrimination on age and gender at the same time. Here we go. Funny. So Jill finally talks about what happened, and I like that. I like that dialogue, but them saying it a lot before she gets to say it makes people say, oh my goodness, this is so annoying. Say it, don't spray it. Just show it, don't blow it. But that's her story to tell. Everybody, Rebecca, Chris, everyone was talking about what happened to Jill before Jill even was able to talk about it on screen. So by the time we heard it from Jill's voice, we're already done and sick of hearing it. I know I was. I'm so sick of hearing the, oh my goodness, do you hearken back to that game? Like I said, a quick way to just show that it is after 5 is showing Jill cut the rest of the blonde hair out of her brown scalp. But, whatever. I gotta calm down because like I said, disappointing. This is such a disappointing movie. And I don't know why people are talking about it like it was great. Like I said, it's just like glitters. Not all glitters is gold. And the glitters is having all these people in one movie. But you don't realize that they were slapping us in the face with these characters so that we can no longer say that Jill's missing. They're going to be like, Jill's right there in that one movie, that one singular movie. Out of all the CGI movies, one movie, shut up now. That's exactly what they're saying. They're never going to bring her back again, ever. In fact, she's probably going to die in the next video game. Who knows? Now people are going to throw most of the criticism towards Jill about, can we stop hearing that this happened? Then Chris starts talking about Pierce, confirming that this is after Resident Evil 6, which I hate because, like I said, Jill looks like she's from Resident Evil 3 Remake. Jill's not even like Resident Evil 5 Remake. Please. I hate everyone who worked on this project. Not the actors or actresses. It's just a job for them. I mean, the director, the writer, the everybody else people. I can't even care for this heart-to-heart between Chris and Jill because they both have terrible attitudes toward each other. They do not act like they've been hanging out this entire time. This isn't just immediately after Resident Evil 6 because Vendetta happened. Vendetta. This is supposed to be after Vendetta. Okay. Okay. Whatever. You know what? Whatever. There's no tenderness or anything between them. Jill is cold, and I'm fine with that, like I said. But like, she wasn't like that in Resident Evil 5 and in the letters in Resident Evil 6 or whatever. She can change. Yeah, she can change. But this attitude they both have towards each other, like, funny no one's talking about Chris's attitude, because it's only an attitude when women have attitudes. But when a man has an attitude, he's just a man, right? Interesting. It's pretty annoying. So we see the villain, and I'm going to call her Weapon Woman. Her name's Maria. She's from Vendetta with this dude named Dr. Taylor. We don't get to see his face, so he's obviously going to be coming around soon. Like, everything is very rudimentary. Like, everything is it's giving 2-year-olds can watch this movie and understand what's going on. It's giving no brain stimulation at all. Like, everything is very predictable. And like I said, the guy who, like the umbrella soldier who didn't want to kill people or want people to die who were already dead, essentially. So the main villain, Blake, is like Two-Face and uses a gun on Dr. Taylor and then on himself to test fate. That's his thing, because he's like, oh, fate, and pawns, and you're just a pawn to the big man and the little man, and what about the big people? And him, the fact that they made this guy a villain, and not even like an ironic villain. An ironic villain, and they're really bad at making ironic villains. You know what? That guy from Infinite Darkness is one of those villains. They're just not good with it. They're just, whoever's making these movies, not good at it. They're not good at making villains that have a point, because in the end, they want to let you know that that point is mute. And in order to make a villain has a point villain, they actually have to be questioning something that matters. And these villains are not questioning something that matters. They're just like, yeah, right. Like, everyone washes them off. No one has any internal dialogue about what they're saying. And that means it's a bad villain. It's a bad villain. Like, if we're not thinking, maybe this person has a point. And not just to say, oh yeah, this person has a point or whatever. Just like they did in Infinite Darkness. It's just not there. It's just not hitting. And I don't know why. They're just not good at it. So in the next scene, Jill is nice to Tara save Claire. So this takes place after Revelations 2. This is when we learn that that's the case. And they're all together except Leon, which is, I'm totally fine with, because I can't stand Leon. So Claire tells them that orcas have been washing up on shore, and they have traces of this new T virus that people have had in the city. And then Rebecca's like, oh, it's from people who visited Alcatraz. And I'm just like, who visits Alcatraz? And then my mom told me that, oh, it's gone. No one's in Alcatraz anymore. And I was like, yeah, I thought that. But it's just the tourist site now. I would never be like, oh, let me go to Alcatraz. Like, I would just think that going into a prison or whatever is just like, I don't know. I would never visit Alcatraz. But, so Claire and Chris go. Rebecca stays home, like the good little girl, I guess. Someone has to hold the fort down. I just wish it was Leon, because I'm so sick of seeing him. I'm fine with Rebecca not being in the field, okay? But you know what? I'd love to see a Resident Evil 0 remake so I can see a better story done, because that had so much potential. If you want to see a better story of Resident Evil 0, which isn't even that much better in all honesty, but it is better. I will say it is better. Play Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles. It's on Wii or I don't know if it's on anything else. I just know that I played Dark Side Chronicles on Wii, and it's basically a remake of, I think, 3 and 0 and something else. 1, I think. And then Dark Side Chronicles is Code Veronica and Operation Javier, Resident Evil 2 retelling. So, like I said, legitimately, everything is predictable. Everything is predictable. From scene to scene, it is very predictable. And I'm not saying it because we know that nobody dies, because these are all the people that we know and care about, and they're alive at this point. And as of Resident Evil 8, everyone's still alive right now, as what we can tell. So Chris can't die. Claire definitely can't die. Leon can't die. Jill can't die. And Rebecca can't die. So it's not the fact that they're not in danger. It's the fact that everything around them is very predictable. Here's an example that has nothing to do with them. So the villain, Blake, foreshadows his death with an Iron Bull story or whatever. And I'm not talking about Dragon Age Inquisition Iron Bull. I'm talking about that Iron Bull where people were burnt alive in it. And he's like, oh, the creator of it died from it. Da-da-da-da. So basically we know he's going to die from his own creation. End of story, end of discussion. Book closed. Anyway, a zombie is in there eating people. Alcatraz. And they're at Alcatraz. And they go for some reason. I don't know why everybody would go. Again, Rebecca's not there and Leon isn't there, but we know he's going to get there eventually. We know that his side story is going to intertwine with theirs, because why is he here then? But why would you go? Why wouldn't you just tell people to not go to Alcatraz if you knew that that's why people were dying? So Jill and Claire all spring into action and we all see cool stuff happening. And then there's a guy recording people turn into zombies. And there's always someone that's like got a camera and doing stuff, and it's like showing the whole new age of where people take their camera out for everything and everything. And here's a little Johnny Cage rant real quick. I love how people were like, oh, Johnny Cage is so mean, Johnny Cage is this and that. But like, y'all only like things when they're in a masculine tone. You only like that Johnny Cage has his phone out and stuff. But if it were a girl, you'd be like, oh, she's so stupid, she's so dumb, eat your food, stop taking pictures of your food. But Johnny Cage, literally, the first time we saw Johnny Cage for real in the trailers of the Mortal Kombat 1 or whatever is when he's coming out of the portal and he's got his phone out and he's just like taking video and stuff or pictures or whatever. But y'all ate that up. Y'all ate that up. But if it were a girl, y'all be upset. Really interesting. Okay, Johnny Cage rant over. So Jill fights for her life and kills a zombie all by herself. So cool, so cool. Yes, yes, yes. Why wouldn't they just tell people to stop going there? Like I said, why go to the place where there are people turning into zombies without being infected? And then Jill, like I said, is being a bad egg. My girl. Claire's doing great as well. Jill runs out of bullets and starts hitting the zombie with the butt of the gun. Yes, I always wonder why I can't do that in video games. Like, honestly, I always wanted to do that when I ran out of ammo. And Chris is doing his best since the steroids detox. He isn't really like doing what all the girls doing. But everybody turns except our people, Jill, Claire, and Chris. Jill is stuck in the sewers because the floor collapsed and she helped this guy that turns into a zombie ultimately anyway, because for some reason they're just turning into zombies. We don't know. Oh my gosh, how you doing it? But like, are we infected? Are we gonna die? Like, who knows? And then we see super lickers enter the water supply, and that's terrible because Jill is in the sewers. The main villain dude keeps playing Russian roulette with himself, remembering his time in Raccoon City. While he was crying on the ground, his partner got infected when all he had to do was help him. I hate this guy so much, and I don't feel bad for him crying and sitting there talking about, oh, I need to atone for my sins. Freaking jump off a building. That was like dumb at its worst. You did not have to sit there and cry. You could have killed your man that was already dead. Instead, you let that guy get bitten and then talk about, because he literally tells them over the walkie-talkie, yeah, somebody's bit. And they're like, you heard us, kill him. We're not going to send no evac. And he already knew that. He already knew this. He's heard it before. He wasn't like out of the room in the restroom real quick. He's heard this 3 times now. Time to kill people. He told them there's someone bit. All he had to do was say no one's bit. And maybe he could have got him help. But he decides to spill the beans, and then they're like, okay, kill this guy or we're not coming to get you. And then literally they fight over a gun and he aims it at the dude. He could have saved if he wasn't such a baby crying on the floor. I will never feel bad for this dude or take anything he says or will say in this movie seriously. So we cut away from that, and Claire and Chris are stuck in Alcatraz and they're jamming their communication devices. Chris is worried about wifey Jill as she's in the sewers. And for some reason, the Alcatraz scenes look terrible. I really don't know what's wrong with it, but it just looks terrible to me. And I have a 4K TV, so it's not my TV. They find a dude with glasses in the cupboard while Jill is in the sewers, because of course there's a sewer level in an RE title. This is when Jill senses someone, and we all know who it is because Leon can't stand to not be the center of attention in these movies. He's the only one I like the voice of. Him and Jill. Like I said, I miss Allison Court as Claire and Roger Craig Smith as Chris. For some reason, Jill, her footage just looks way better than Claire and Chris's on screen. I think it has to do with the colors, though. I really do think it's the colors. Because I look back and I'm like, yeah, their colors are a little different, but... So, in the sewers, they see a humongous sus licker that almost gets Jill, but Leon has to be the hero and save her. They leave together as the lickers run towards them. And I kind of like Leon's one-liner. That one-liner he has down there. I chuckled like twice in the whole movie. They blow them up. And then I take back what I said about Leon. The moment he says 0, because she's like, what? Because she's like, how many are there? He's like, you want me to count? Like, I thought that was like cute for a second. And then when he said 0, and then she rolled her eyes, that was me too. Because it was sick. What's wrong with you? So back with Chris and Claire. Chris tells the glasses dude, I'm from the BSAA. And Claire's like, oh, I'm from TerraSave. And he's like, oh, y'all are terrorists. So he's basically like a person who watches Blocks news and whatnot and crap. And then she's talking about, oh, you want to hear real news, da-da-da-da. And I know people might roll their eyes at that, but this is not the first generation who's had to worry about false information being fed to the public. Legitimately, they were saying the same crap in the 70s. They were saying the same crap in the 50s, and they were saying the same crap in the 20s. Like, it's not a new phenomenon. Every generation has people who don't believe in reality. So this guy legitimately says, my name is Tony Davis. Yeah, Tony Davis. That's me. Fakest name alive. I'm most certain this dude is Dr. Taylor at this point because we weren't able to see his face when he was introduced. Like, very predictable, very predictable. I want you to go back and watch any of the rest of the movies. Degeneration, Darnation, even Infinite Darkness, and tell me if you could guess what happened in the very next scene as much as you can in this movie. Makes no sense and has nothing to do with the fact that everyone lives. Has nothing to do with that. Everyone could have lived. It could have been great. I'll explain to you how I would have wrote this story at the end. Stay tuned. So Chris and Claire fight zombies again while Tony, the fake name David, cries in the corner. He's confused because Claire helps him after the fact, and Chris says, oh, we treat your wounds even if you were one of the bad guys. Like, okay, dude. Anyway, Leon and Jill have banter I like. Leon's voice is so great. I hate Leon, and I'm like, I told you, I'll be honest. Like, I'm not gonna hate just to hate. I'm not gonna be a hater. Leon's voice is soothing. I like his voice. I like his voice actor. His voice actor is one of the greatest voice actors to voice Leon. So is Jill. Claire and Chris. Freaking terrible, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. Not going to harass anyone about it, though. Leon says their cases are connected. Like, duh. Everyone knew that. Why did we see Leon in the beginning if he wasn't going to match with everybody else? Leon's looking for the doctor. I hate that Leon is, like, such a draft finder scumbag. Like, Jill has been training far longer than Leon, so she could have found the draft in the wall. But funny, people are going to be like, oh, you're just nitpicking at this point. No, I'm not. Jill Valentine is a hardened warrior. She has been training for longer. She was a part of special forces before Leon had his first day of cop beating on the beat. Before he was on the beat as a cop, she was already a special force member. So don't tell me she can't find a draft in the wall. Y'all just love to flex on the girls for no reason. Leon and Jill break out of prison through the wall while liquor creatures are in the water below them. Leon is leading Jill, which again, I hate. Like I said, Jill has been training longer than Leon. He's not like better than her. Jill is better than Leon. Chris and Jill are better than Leon and Claire. Simple, easy, simple. That is it. We can say that. I'm willing to say that. But I refuse to believe that Leon has surpassed Jill. He is not. We see something's perspective as Chris, Claire, Dr. Tony, like they sit down and Chris wants Claire to run with the doctor, but Claire starts to change just like Chris. And Dr. Doofendump flees because he knows they're changing. And the weapon woman, aka Maria, is at the top of the stairs. And the doctor's afraid. He thinks that they've turned on him, which they have. The evil villains don't be not turning on you. But Jill and Leon are looking at a submarine, which is probably how they're going to escape. And they see Alcatraz is an armory now, not just for a tourist attraction. Rebecca contacts Hunnigan, but we don't even get to see Hunnigan. They share notes, exchange situations, and learn that the dude behind all this crap has files on everyone. Leon, Chris, Jill, and Claire. However, in the opening credits, we saw that Leon's stuff was redacted, so he barely got anything on him because he's been working with the president, and the president did that for him. So, yeah, he's better in every way for everybody. He's just superhero, superhuman, but no one's going to call him a Mary Sue. Interesting. And I'm not arguing with people about that. There's no such thing as Mary Sue. I'm not arguing. So, here's the villain's voiceover in the intercoms to let them know he has Chris and Claire. And I hate that Claire is listed last the entire time in this movie. When they talk about everybody and they list them, they always list Claire last. Like, okay. Rebecca goes with a team with the antidote because she knows that something's wrong. They're going Alcatraz. Claire and Chris are locked up and breathing strange. Claire's locked up with the doctor and Chris is by himself, which you'd think that they would want. I don't know. It just makes no sense. They know that Chris and Claire are related, but they're not going to. The reason why Claire is in there with the doctor is because eventually the big boss guy, Blake, wants Claire to kill the doctor, an innocent or whatever. But you'd think that he would want her to kill her brother or them to kill each other because they're related. And if them to suffer, then you'd think that... Anywho, I'll talk about it when it happens anyway. So Jill and Leon see the doctor that Leon is looking for, and he sees the main villain. His name is Dylan Blake, like the craziest villain name in the universe. He's the one infecting people by electrotech mosquitoes. That's the thing we were seeing when Claire and Chris were in the place with the doctor and whatnot. Maria is that girl's name, like I said, and that's when her name is revealed. I don't remember Vendetta because it was so forgettable. People were healed by magic, legitimately. I really want you to watch Vendetta and tell me that wasn't magic. Tell me that wasn't magic. So anyway, Jill needs to shoot that man. She has him at gunpoint, and this is what makes no sense to me. I feel like she would have shot him in the head by now. Like, he is sitting there with a cane, and yes, at this point, they may not know how he's infecting people, or may not know an antidote. At this point, they don't know how to get an antidote, but I would have shot this dude in the head. I'm sorry. That's just me. They love to wait until things are way mutated beyond repair to start fighting things. And yeah, you could say that it's very consistent with their character, and that's why I'm going to leave it on the table. Okay, so this is where I lose everything about this Dylan Blake guy. He's upset at the status quo uplifters, but like I said, I can't take him seriously. He considers them pawns, everybody a pawn, like it showed in the opening credit. Blake feels guilty for surviving when all he had to do was help his friend and then not kill him. But he decided to cry and had to beat him to death because, I don't know, I can't with this villain. Because if they wanted to do survivor's guilt with someone, they had Chris the entire time. He even talks about Pierce. There's a time where Blake drags everybody, and I'll discuss it when it happens. But if they wanted someone who had survivor's guilt and they wanted to make the story around that person, could have been Chris. But I know they made Blake because of the current climate in society right now, to make him seem like it's irrational to think people need to pay for being rich and powerful without helping anyone and exploiting everyone. I hate that they give him that afterpoint to his chip on shoulder attitude. Like, Jill calls Blake insane, as she should, because he is. And also, the doctor isn't innocent. Like, the guy was like, you know why I infected Claire and Chris and Leon and left Jill alive so that you can be the one that survives and has to kill everybody. But he doesn't open the doors or nothing. Like, this is just such a crappy movie and a crappy character, crappy villain trash. Like, Jill didn't let her friends die because she was crying in a corner. She is very much so standing her ground and willing to kill anyone except the guy who she could shoot in the head right now because he's not infected with anything. But this is when he starts dragging people. So Blake drags Leon, but he doesn't go really deep enough. He's like, oh, you're just a pawn for the president. You're just a pawn for the government. And he's like, well, it's a living. He don't even care. And I wouldn't care either. I'm not saying that they should care and be like, you know what? Let me internalize this right now. Let you be my shrink, my therapist, psychologist, and everything in the middle. And let's start talking about it together. I didn't want that. I just didn't want this whole story to begin with. We didn't need Blake. We didn't need to go back to Raccoon City. If we were going to go back to Raccoon City, the villain could have been internal within these people. And then they'd be like, oh, it's not, it wouldn't be cool enough. It wouldn't be cool enough. This movie isn't cool. Just because there's zombies in it, it's not cool. This isn't a good movie. This is a terrible movie. Hated it. But like I said, his drag of Leon does not go deep enough. And he don't even care. He drags him for being a bootlick, freaking military, like freaking government pawn, and he does not care. He freaking says it's a living. What are you gonna do? And then he starts dragging Claire, even though she's like the best person there and does the best. Like, she's had the least amount of deaths under her watch or whatever, if we're gonna play that game, I guess. She's like not been the problem. She's not even been the issue for anything, and she's done nothing but help people. He says that she likes having other people do the dirty work when she's literally ran after her brother in Code Veronica, but no one knows this because no one has a remake to look after, and no one's gonna play the old one because it looks like trash. If you want to see me play it, though, link is in the description to my Resident Evil Code Veronica X playthrough. I played from beginning to end. It was amazing. It's the best game, and it should get a remake, and here we go. He literally is like, oh, you just give Band-Aids and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, Band-Aid is better than no-aid. Like, bro, what you talking about? And that's what she says to him. Like, no one takes what he's saying seriously. He's literally like a joke boss, a joke villain, makes me sick villain. What are you doing? Dylan Blake villain. Like, I am literally going to shoot venom in my words when I spit them. Bars. Because I am so angry that this movie could have been so good and it wasn't. This is where we're at right now. Then he starts dragging Chris, and I am so sick of people talking about, oh, literally people were like, yes, yes, queen, yes, to Blake talking about how Chris has lost every person that was under his care. How is that his fault? Go back and play Resident Evil 1. How is any of that his fault? That's Wesker's fault. That's Barry's fault. Barry was against, like, how is he supposed to take into consideration, oh yeah, not only is my boss going against me, but the person that I cared about is going against me too. Barry legitimately turned against them because he had his family on lockdown. He was going to kill his family. So I'm not holding it against Barry. I'm not holding it against Barry, even though he still has problems with that because he was talking about Resident Evil Revelations too. But dude, how is that Chris's fault? And then if we're going to go to Resident Evil 6, how is that his fault too? Legitimately, how is that his fault? Just because Chris is alive and people are doing stuff to him and then people die, they don't pick up the gun and put on the vest to come home at the end of the day. All these people know what they're in for with these BOWs. They have the BSAA, son. You need to get right or get cracking or get out. You know what I'm saying? So don't blame people dying around Chris. Like, if this were Chuck Norris, it'd be like, oh, he don't lose members. He just gains souls. Something stupid like that. Like, but with Chris, for some reason, everybody loves to drag him about how people are dying around him when how is that his fault? Please explain to me how it's his fault. How is any of these times his fault? It'd be one thing if he was just he was just making bad decisions to get people killed. Pierce didn't die because of him. Pierce died because of himself, in all honesty, but he lost people around him, and that's sad for him. And then there goes the survivor guilt that could have came into play if that's what you wanted to do, but no, that's not what you did. What you did was you made up some random character that we just so happened to go back in time to be like, oh, he was there. You can say that about anybody. Oh my gosh. Oh, he's like soldier number 8 that just so happened to survive as well. So now we got another survivor. It's just like Kingdom Hearts. It's the whole Kingdom Hearts phenomenon with Keyblade. Kingdom Hearts 1, the reason why Donald and Goofy were following Sora is because he had a Keyblade. The only other person that they even considered to have a Keyblade was the King Mickey. And then all of a sudden, in 2, everybody got a Keyblade. And then in every other rendition of the game, everybody got a Keyblade. Everyone, I'm Squidward, you're Squidward. Like, he's Squidward, I'm Squidward. Like, it became something rather of a joke. Then one doesn't make any sense. Like, Jill Valentine, Rebecca Chambers, all the people who survived Raccoon City is because, oh, they're special. But it's not special anymore when there's so many of these survivors that you're just making up. You legitimately you made him up. You made up Dylan Blake out of nowhere. Like, gonna calm down. But I just think it's hilarious how people love to talk about how, oh, Chris, you lose all these people. It's just like being mad that somebody dies in war, but not mad that they died because they didn't need to die. But, oh, it's the guy above. It's the people who was their commander. It's their fault. Yep, it's their fault when there's no even context. No one even contextualizes why these people died around Chris. They didn't die because he needed to close the gate and then he's like, sorry, I want to live and I'm going to keep. He was very selfless in every aspect of him. He was selfless when he went to go find Claire on Rockford Island or whatever. Like, he was selfless in every game he's in. The only game that is very questionable is Resident Evil 7. And like I said, I hate Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8 because those stories could have been happening at the same time somewhere else. And it did not have to include Chris, and it did not have to include anybody that we knew. They could have came around later. That could have been a side story. Who knows? But we'll never know, because now we've got to continue with Chris being a part of Blue Umbrella, like he would ever do that. But anyone who drags Chris for people dying around him, in my opinion, little dum-dums. Then Dylan Blake drags Jill, but she don't even consider him like gum on her shoe, and tells him to go blank himself. Yes, Jill, queen, we stan. And there's people coming to help them, but a creature that looks like a liquor orca thing is causing chaos in the water. So like everybody's like dying and whatnot or whatever. Somehow Rebecca, she just survives everything. I'm not saying I wanted her to die, but it's just like, okay, really interesting. Like I said, we didn't even need this story. The story is really terrible and putrid. It's really bad. So Leon has to save Jill with a flash, and she flees like Krauser. That was pretty hilarious. I thought that was really funny. I love when Vendetta was hilarious. I love when the movies or show or whatever is hilarious, because I can just watch it and it not even matter to me, and I'm not even mad. But what makes me mad is the fact that all these things that happen, and the boss, like I said, the villain is supposed to represent the fandom and how they feel about us. This is really an insult. It should be an insult to everybody. And like I said, I'm fine with the incels getting flack for how they treated Resident Evil 3 Remake Jill Valentine's redesign. But the real fans that have been here since day one, that make content to keep Capcom relevant in this era, I told you, the moment that Silent Hill comes to Xbox, I'm literally going to be playing like Silent Hill, going to be making Silent Hill content, because I've given up on Capcom. Make me sick, and this movie just lets me know that I'm not welcome. Capcom don't welcome me. Capcom don't welcome nobody. And I think that's what we should all take into consideration, that, you know what I mean? But the biodrones hatch from a liquor host, and Dylan Blake admits he wants to infect the world, and they're like, you're just some dude. You're just some dude that's a gross guy. You're a terrorist, and gone. Claire tries to save the doctor, who literally didn't tell the truth and told them that he was somebody else. And she's like, oh, let me help you. And he literally got shot in the chest. How are you going to help that? Are you going to do surgery? Are you Rebecca Chambers? No. So I don't know what you're going to do, Claire. That's hilarious. Like I said, there's a lot of hilarious moments in these CG movies that are like not even serious. So this is the dumbest part of the movie, because at this point, Blake is telling Claire to kill the doctor and Jill to shoot Claire to stop that from happening before Jill ran away. And sure, they couldn't have made Claire turn into anything, but funny how in Vendetta people were cured by literal magic dust. She doesn't turn or even aggress at the doctor before Blake shoots him in the chest to prove that Jill can't save everyone, but she doesn't really care about the doctor. If he wanted to hurt her, he could have shot Chris. He kind of is just in this scene just to be in it. Like, he brings nothing to the table. She cares literally about everybody else in the room more than she cares about the doctor. He can literally die. Girl, and he does. Rest in wee-wee. While all this is happening, like I said, Chris is taking a little nap while Leon is still, like, being able to wisecrack while he's dying because he's infected. And Chris and Leon say, oh, we have Jill. Just like in Avengers, they were like, oh, we have a Hulk, when Loki was like, I have an army. And I thought that was really cool because, again, it just reestablishes that we're watching an Avengers type thing of Resident Evil. And that's cool. That's a cool, like I said, we're at baseline 5 out of 10 right now. Baseline 5 out of 10. It can't go any lower than 5, but it may not go higher. We'll see. So the doctor tells Claire that there's a contingency plan if he was screwed over, which he was. He gives her a thing and says that the password is what they need, and he probably changed it or whatever. And Rebecca says, oh, their backup is just dead. Like, she literally pulls up and says, hey, so all the people that came with me, they died. Anyway, do you need help? Like, she lists. That's just, okay, dude, okay. Like, who wrote this? Like, okay. I'm fine. Like, please put me on payroll. Please call me up. Be like, yeah, do you want a job? Because I can do better than this. Can't be no worse. Like, all the people died. Like, they died. Like, she just, okay. Jill goes to the armory, while Rebecca has to save the infected Claire, Chris, and Leon. Blake makes plans to infect the world, and he's sitting there all happy, and then Maria opens the floodgates, so this can happen. Claire's fighting infection, while Chris does too, and Leon is finding a happy place. Everyone here has been infected, or at least exposed twice, so people were like, oh, why didn't they, like... This is what's interesting to me. We've seen where they started being infected, like in Resident Evil 3 Remake and in Resident Evil 4 Remake. Their faces changed. Something changed. All they do is make noises and grunt and whatnot, like, and maybe twinge a little. Nothing happens. And I would totally understand if maybe their veins turn blue or green or something, you know? But nothing happens. You used all that money to make this movie look like a video game, only for nothing really to happen to them. And I'm not saying that it needs, like I said, Vendetta, people were turned from zombie to human by magic dust. So, sorry, my bad, if I want maybe a little bit of popped blood vessel in the eyeball of these people who are infected. Especially since they've been infected by at least 2 things. They've all been experienced at least 2 viruses, each one of them. Leon was in Raccoon City when the T virus and the G virus and the E virus and like, I don't know, okay? All right, I'm just a Resident Evil fan. I'm not someone who's on the payroll. Rebecca tells everyone Jill is headed towards the armory, like she said 2 seconds ago. She heals Leon first, which I hate, but he's the one outside the bar, so... whatever, but I'd personally heal Chris, then Claire, then Leon if he's still alive. They take their drugs and everyone's happy. Leon runs off, leaving the siblings and Rebecca to go help him somewhere, whatever, wherever he may be. Leon has a fight scene with Maria. So the guy I thought was her husband in Vendetta, because I think I called her guy that was really big. Her husband was her dad. So she's like, oh, I'm going to avenge my father. And they have a fight, which is hilarious because she bangs his head up against some... like pipe, and it's hilarious. I think it's so hilarious. I really do think it's hilarious. Jill confronts Blake when she should just shoot him in the head. Like, no taking prisoners, no questions. Like, literally, he infects himself and drops himself into the water. Now they gotta fight some monstrosity of a boss when they could have just shot him in the head in the prison block. Nothing was stopping her. Literally, he is eaten by a big old liquor in the water so he can mutate. We already know this. We've seen this song and dance. Leon's fighting Maria, and I wish he didn't get the cool fight, but whatever. It's a continuation of the beginning, so... And also, again, I'm so sick of men, and even women, like Claire called Alex Wesker in Resident Evil Revelations 2 a B. I'm so sick of hearing that, because there's no male equivalent. Like, any male equivalent, guys don't care to be called that. Maria should have ended Leon. Like, I can't take their fight seriously, especially since he's not even 100%. And they even talk about how, oh, Leon's not 100%, but for some reason he can go toe-to-toe to this girl who is literally breaking walls with her freaking fists. But okay, let's just go off. In Resident Evil 4, he's almost the entire time infected with Las Plagas, which makes sense that when he's fighting people and he's fighting Chainsaw Guy, that he's not going to die instantly. But he does. There is like an instant kill, but whatever. Maria is impaled, but I thought she was infected. I guess not. I don't know what she is, but she died. Rest in peace to a real one. She was really cool. Now everyone's together to fight the big monster Blake creature. And here we get the promotional shot of them fighting together. They all do their part to take Blake down. It's super cool to see them use everything in their arsenal at their disposal. While Chris, Jill, and Leon fight the rest of the fight, Claire, Rebecca go to the computer and try to stop the bees or whatever, the freaking mosquito things. Jill has that same thing she used in Resident Evil 3 Remake, which is such a shameless plug. I can't even stress enough how lazy it was to use her Resident Evil 3 Remake model for this movie. It's so ludicrous. And I'm just not here to believe that sorry sack story that they're talking about. Oh, it's because she was in a cryogenic state and she's got Uroboros and she's got Bunapanapa and she's got the umberage virus. Like, legitimately, everybody here has been either infected, just literally injected with a virus and or parasite, and or have been in proximity to, touched, sucked other viruses, and everybody else is somewhat aging. But here we go with Jill Valentine, just because she was like the most recently used asset. Don't play me for a fool. You legitimately just said, let me think of the first thing that pops in my head. Oh yeah, Jill, she doesn't age anymore. Whew. Wow, I'm glad I got that off my chest. Like, bro, are you serious? For real? And then y'all took them seriously? Leon says he's going to go on vacation after this, which is what I thought this movie was going to be. Everyone going on vacation to an island, and somehow there's a virus killing people. That's such a better plot than what we got here. Like, this umbrella operative that we've never heard of before just so happened to survive and has a survivor's guilt situation, making everyone else feel guilty for his own mistakes when all he had to do was freaking not sit in the corner and cry. He could have saved one person at the very least. And funny thing about this is the reason why he's upset is because he was going to shoot this guy. He was shooting and then he had no bullets. So the guy was like angry, even though he was just killing people. He was just like, I'm going home. And when it happened to him, he was like, okay, let me kill you. But before he could shoot at Blake beats him to death. And that's why he's upset. And he's making everyone pay for his mistakes because that happened. Jill gets most of the screen time, followed by a tie between Chris and Leon, then Claire, then Rebecca, which is what I would expect. Literally. And that's the end of the movie. And it was a terrible movie. It looked strange for a while. The only parts that looked good were the parts that were dark. And that says a lot about, just because it looks new and it looks innovative or it looks cool or it's the best quality you can have it, that doesn't mean it's going to be really good looking or appealing. The motion looked really strange, especially when Chris and Claire were on the screen. I think it has to do with their colors. So this movie was an hour and 30 minutes for $5.99. I'm sorry, that's a robbery. It's worth $3.99 at best. This movie was disappointing to me and a letdown. If they didn't spend so much time using Blake as a stand-in for fans who keep y'all in business, maybe you could have had a better plot, better dialogue, a better villain. Like, why is Maria friendly with Blake? She wants revenge for her father, but like, what else? That was a stale storyline. There's no reason why she's here except the fact that you just needed to continue it, but you don't care about continuing anything about anywhere else. Like, we're still waiting for Jessica to come back from Resident Evil Revelations 1. We're still waiting for that. We're still waiting for the other guy. We're still waiting for everything else that you just let die. And then you're gonna bring Maria back like we even cared. Like, Vendetta is like the worst movie, but whatever. So there are 10 stables that I discuss when I rate or review a Resident Evil movie, show, or game. Some things are not applicable, so that's basically how I do the 0 to 10 scale for these movies. And like I said, I'm gonna take back what I said about Vendetta and give it a lower rating than what it originally had in that video. First is horror, ambiance, music, sound. There's only one aspect in which is horror driven in this movie, so I'm not going to give it to them. Puzzles, mini games, difficulty, not applicable. Backtracking, not applicable. But the maps and locations that goes along with that. The location was okay, but it just seemed flat. There's something that happens when they try to make a movie look like a video game too much, and it just makes me want to play the video game and not watch a movie. So I don't like that. Tyrants, bosses, mini bosses, optional bosses. Blake's transformation was a little lackluster. It was okay, but it wasn't like the best thing in the world. It just didn't move me. Different perspectives, characters. Yeah, that's gonna get a point because, of course, all the Resident Evil heads were here. Zombies, viruses, BOWs. I personally would rather have a new virus than say this is the old virus, in all honesty, but I really don't care. I'll give them that point because it is a virus. Corporations, anti-capitalism, umbrella tri-cell situation. We hear this dude Blake talking about, oh, you always beat on the little people, and what about the little guy? Like, it'd be fun. It'd be actually interesting if there was actually someone I could take seriously, but like I said, his whole thing is him crying, and while he's crying, his partner gets bit, and then he has to beat him to death because he ran out of bullets. That is all his fault. That's not the little guy's fault. That's his fault. So I can't take Dylan Blake seriously. He was one of the worst villains aside from the Resident Evil 6 villain that tried to like lust over Ada or something really strange. He was one of the worst villains they have ever created. He does not have a point, and they use these talking points even around the time people are striking. People want money that they're owed for their time, legitimately, and they're gonna have the audacity to make this character who is, for all intents and purposes, just a freaking representation of what they think of us as fans, like legitimately. That's why there was a moment where he was sitting there dragging everybody for what they lack. I'm surprised that he didn't say, to Leon. And then why do you keep busting stuff on the freeway and whatnot? And it would have actually made sense because in the beginning, the opening scene, he was just brazening his gun. He was just thrashing it about on the freeway. Like, he's just very irresponsible. Don't know how Leon's still employed. Gameplay, controls, movement, enemies, weapons, not applicable, but the weapons were pretty cool. Continuity doesn't fit in the story. It absolutely fits in the story. It's just a little annoying. Like I said, Dylan Blake is just not really good villain. He does not have a point. You did this on purpose to spit in the fans' faces. Everybody who plays Resident Evil is just an amalgamation within this dude, Dylan Blake. Overall story, does it stand alone? It definitely does stand alone. Now I'm going to talk about how I would have made this movie. This movie, as it is right now, it's a 5 out of 10. It was only 5 because, like I said, they had all the characters here. That's what happened. And that's it. There's really nothing else to say about what I just experienced. It's a 5 out of 10 movie. It's garbage to me. I don't like it. It's terrible. When I heard Death Island, I thought it was a vacation island. I thought they were going on a vacation and then just happened, like, this is my Resident Evil Death Island storyline. It would go like this. After dealing with the horrors and experiences over the last couple of years, Chris takes Jill to a romantic getaway to a tropical island to relax. They're all invited. Ironically, they see Claire, they see Rebecca, and they see Leon here. You know what I mean? Like, or Leon doesn't have to be here. Leon could never be here. You know what I'm saying? But like, that sounds cool, right? Rather than relaxing, Jill feels her past coming back to haunt her as she sees visions of Wesker stalking her every move. This movie would start with Jill finally being back on the front lines, and she mistakes one of her men for Wesker and shoots him. He's fine, but she believes she's not ready to fight with friends. She's willing to go on solo missions alone, but Chris wants to take her on vacation. Maybe he can call Leon, and who wants a vacation, but ask him to take the mission that Jill was going to do, and he does the solid for Chris so that they can go to Love Island and be in love, and literally that would be so cool. But they go by ship. They can go on a ship if you need a ship in this movie, because a ship was in this movie. They can all go on vacation. And just like if you want to harken back to Resident Evil 3 Remake, Jill was having visions of her being a zombie. You can harken that back and see, like, what if Albert Wesker is haunting her? She went through a lot of stuff, and we have yet to see her deal with that. That's why people are saying, oh, it's fine that she's the way that she is in this movie because she has trauma, and people keep defending that. And I completely understand that. But this is a different route to take, and maybe so many people won't think that she's a different person if this was the type of story we got. To an island that they're all brought to, and we can still have a villain that has information on all of them because they invited everyone there, and they're like, oh, isn't it ironic? And then they all there, and they all gotta fight zombies. Doesn't that sound like a better movie? Do you want the whole movie? You're gonna have to have me on the payroll, Capcom. I'm not just gonna give you free content. And yes, there should be some romance between Chris and Jill. How come there isn't any romance between them, ever? I'm so sick of hearing people talking about Claire and Leon. Cleon doesn't exist. Stop it. They're just friends. You know who isn't just friends? Freaking Jill and freaking Chris. How about that? How about them apples? Yeah, that's it. I'm done. This was a long one. This was a longin'. Okay, this one's a longin'. Don't know when I'm going to get this out. I hope I'm going to get this out soon. But yeah, Death Island as it stands, not my Death Island. My Death Island sounds a lot better. Everyone's talking about a vacation. This is like third time Leon talked about a vacation. Bring them to a vacation site. Have an island. The reason why you had it on Alcatraz is so that there could be a virus that was contained in a setting. Because guess what? We have stuff that's in the future. That wouldn't make sense if everybody died from a virus or everybody was connected to a virus. That's why you had it in Alcatraz. How about you put that island and make it a romantic getaway? Win-win situation for every single goddamn person. This crap that Resident Evil Death Island, Alcatraz, Blake talking down to our characters, talking about everything that's bad that's ever happened to them, like they're gonna listen to this scrub bag, was ridiculous and insulted everyone's intelligence. Because this guy don't have no point. He don't have no point. His reason for making everybody's like, oh, there is no hope, made no sense. Made no sense that he had this doctor. Made no sense that Maria was even working with this guy. Makes no sense that Leon was here at all. Makes no sense that Claire was here. Like, and like I said, I'm fine with everyone being here, but how about you have a better story? Don't just throw them all in here so that you could finally be like, don't ask about Rebecca no more. Don't ask about Jill no more. Don't ask about Claire. And now you can go to business as usual. And then the next CG movie, you're going to make Leon the star once again. Maybe have Chris in there a little bit. And then now that people are like, respect the characters that males wrote, we're going to have no Rebecca, no Claire or Jill. Bet you anything. How much you want to bet? I'm done. I'm so done. Hope you guys enjoyed. It's a 5 out of 10 movie. Watch it so you didn't have to. I literally just told you everything that happened in this movie. You don't gotta watch it. It's overpriced as all get out. It was terrible. Nothing good came of it. Nothing of substance mattered. And like I said, these movies are not something that changes the course of history. No one loses an arm or anything. And I don't need that to happen. What I need to happen is something of substance. Something of substance. Even Degeneration was just a rehash of Resident Evil 2, kind of. In a way, it was still something you could watch and be fine with. And then guess what? Leon got to kiss a girl and got to have a date or whatever. Like, and Claire got to be a babysitter. So that wasn't even that great. If you want to know my opinion about all the CG movies, like I said, links in the description. Hope you enjoyed. I will never watch that movie again. It goes below Vendetta. I really thought that Vendetta was terrible, but I really don't like this movie. And you know what? I'm not even going to do that to this movie. This movie is one click above Vendetta. Hated this virus as well, too. It's like an upgraded T-virus. It's like a mutated T-virus. It's like a boom, 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 boom. Okay, dude, I'm done.